Welcome to the NIEM XML artifacts presentation. Now what we're talking about here are the various XML schema artifacts that go into an IEPD, the Information Exchange Package Documentation Bundle, for lack of another word. I don't want to say package again because it's already in the name of an IEPD. But an IEPD is a whole collection of different files that all together define an information exchange. And some of those files are things that people look at, Word documents, spreadsheets, things like that. But some of the other files are files of XML schema, and the major ones are the ones that we're going to talk about here. And they are the subset schemas, extension schemas, exchange schemas, and constraint schemas. So when you're going and defining an IEPD, these are all different schemas that you need to create as part of your IEPD. Let's look at each one in turn. Our first topic are subset schemas. Now here's the deal. The NIEM is huge, huge, has thousands of elements in it. And any particular exchange of information is going to use but a fraction of what's available in the NIEM. So why would you want to deal with everything in the NIEM as part of your actual exchange? The answer is you wouldn't. So we use subsets to carve the NIEM down to what you need and what you want. So it basically comes down to two parts. What you specifically need for your exchange, you need elements A, B, and C for your exchange, plus you'll need some stuff to support A, B, and C. You'll need the types thereof, you'll need what types those types are derived from, and you'll need the infrastructure pieces in the NIEM as well. So that's what we mean when we talk about a subset schema. It's a schema that represents a subset of the NIEM as a whole, having only the pieces you need for your information exchange, instead of having to deal with the entire NIEM. So here's everything you get when you make a subset. First, you get all the elements and types, if you explicitly selected types, that you wanted. You go through and there's a tool called the SSGT, which we'll talk about in a sec, and pick all the elements and types that you want. So you get all of those in the subset because you've asked for them. You also get all the types from which the elements you selected are derived. So if you grab person, well, you get person type. If you grab case, you get case type. You get all the types that you need. You also get the types from which those types are derived. So if you pick something that's activity of some sort, say citation, you get citation type, but you also get the activity type that citation type is derived from. You also get trimmed down versions of the NIEM schemas. In other words, all these elements you don't get in one big lump. Instead, they're organized into namespaces, and those namespaces are still little trimmed down versions of the NIEM schemas. In other words, they still have the same headers and footers at the beginning and the end of the schema that the full schemas do. I mean, what you get is a full, complete NIEM schema, only with all the elements you don't want taken out. You also get the infrastructure pieces from the structure namespace, and then you get the base types from the NIEM XSD namespace. So you get all the integers and string base types to make everything else work. The bottom line is you end up with a set of NIEM schemas that look like the NIEM, except for they're carved down to just what you need. The things you asked for, plus the things you asked for need. And that's what you get in a subset. Want lists are related to subset schemas. Want lists are the list of all the elements and types, if you explicitly ask for types, but of all the elements you explicitly selected in the SSGT. Now, want list is kind of a misnomer because it's not everything you wanted. It's everything you wanted that the NIEM had. There's still going to be elements you want that the NIEM doesn't have, and you'll add those in an extension schema. So want list is a bit of a misnomer, but that's all right. Want lists are formatted as XML. Now it's not NIEM XML, it's a different XML format, but it's XML, which means you can read them in a normal XML editor and make them if you want, create them. They were initially used to save your work. You'd be working in the subset schema generation tool, the SSGT, and you'd need to walk away for a while. Well, the way that it used to save your work was it provided you with a want list. You asked for the want list, you downloaded it, and then when you came back later, you would import the want list back into the SSGT to pick up where you left off. Now, while you can still just ask for a want list, if you generate a subset out of the SSGT, the want list matching that subset will come along for the ride. So it's automatically included when you generate a subset. You don't have to ask for it separately. Finally, you can also create it using other tools and use it as an input to the SSGT. Now, I'm not sure of a whole lot of tools that do that, but it's not that hard to do. I've created tools in the past that do that. So there are ways to use the want list as sort of a transfer mechanism between other tools and the SSGT. So here's a quick look at what a want list looks like. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because in general, you don't need to know what a want list looks like. It's just nice that you're familiar with them. You know they're in XML. If you're really interested, you can take a close look at this example and you can see different elements that were selected, like a person and a person eye color text. You can also see other items that were selected within the context of a type. So there's a person full name selected within the context of being in person name type, and there's a few other examples. Again, just want you exposed to it. If you're really interested in working with want lists, then you can take a closer look on your own. So how do you make a subset? Well, you can make them by hand. You really can. You can take the full set of NIEM schemas and delete all the stuff you don't need and then run it through a validator to see if it all hangs together, and then find out you missed some dependencies, and then go back and fix those dependencies and do it all again and run it through and validate it and find out you missed more dependencies and fix those, and then realize you missed this element here and put that back in and then run it through a validator again, and then find you missed more dependencies and fix those. And you can do all that, but why? There's really no reason to. What you want to do is either use a large-scale development tool that does all your NIEM stuff all in one place, and there are some out there, or else use the Schema Subset Generation tool, the SSGT. The SSGT builds subsets with all the dependencies resolved. So you go through and you search for the things you want, and you select them, and you build a subset, and then you go, hey, generate it. You hit the button, and it generates the subsets with all the dependencies resolved. It's really nice and slick. You can also set cardinality in your subset schema. We're going to talk more about cardinality setting in just a bit. So examples of using the SSG and looking at subsets? Well, frankly, the best example is to go and play with the darn thing. Seriously, pause the video, go find the SSGT via NIEM.gov and play with it. Choose some elements, generate a subset, look at the results, go back in, add a few more. There's really no substitute for actually playing around with it for a while and seeing what you get. There may also be demos online to look at. I'm not aware of any. I did a webinar regarding the SSG and a bunch of other tools about a year ago, and unfortunately the recording of that webinar was lost. So there may be more in the future, just don't know, but look around and see what you can find.